presumably, we're live. Presumably. Uh,
Let's see.
so a while ago, two people were playing Pokemon Go. Did you hear that story? They were actually in Temecula, where Ash is.
Okay.
Yeah, they were walking and trying to catch a Pokemon, and they fell off a cliff.
Oh my
Shut
god.
up, man.
That sucks.
That's brutal.
Presumably, we're live.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah.
I'm sure their parents are gonna sue. Try to get
Why
rid
would-
of something.
well,
Crazy.
well, either way, what's going on today is we are having a very interesting person for our stream. It's Alex Figini, and I'm pretty excited about this one because you are a person. You're doing
Yeah.
exactly something that I was thinking about doing, but I've never done, and therefore it's going to be. I think it's going to be an interesting conversation because I'm just curious how everything went for you, because there are some similarities in terms of how your career looked like compared to what I've been doing personally, and where I was trying to go with it, and what kind of tools I was picking up along
Yeah.
the way versus what I ended up with. So I think I'm gonna start in a very regular way, in a very boring fashion, to ask maybe for you to introduce yourself a little bit, talk about who you are, where you work, how did you come up to be the person you are, or in terms of your career and in terms of what you do,
Yeah.
and we'll go from there, dude.
Sure. Well, I'm Alex Figini. I guess I've been doing art since I was a kid, like a lot of artists. But I really kind of took it serious when I was about 16 or so. And that was the point I had to figure out what I wanted to do as a job. And most of the options were like boring office work or like more academic stuff. And I was not really into that to do basically for the rest of your life. So I was like, yeah, I think I want to design characters, and basically went to art college, and from there went to uni, studied multimedia design, which was like pretty much every subject you can imagine, life drawing, web design, interactive design, specializing in like game art in the last year.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, from that built a portfolio, applied to like infinite amount of places and didn't hear anything back. And then about 6 months after leaving uni, I got an interview at a place called Evolution Studio, and it was in a place called Runcorn, which I'd never heard of, which was at the northwest of the country.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to commute up to there. Actually, I think I nailed the interview because I got the job.
Of course. Nice.
Yeah, then I
nice.
was there. I was there for 6 years. So
Perfect.
yeah, and then so at that company, I worked on MotorStorm. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
Heard of it.
It was a racing game at
Yeah.
the release of the PS3, and yeah, worked on that franchise for like 6 years almost, and then got the opportunity to come to Canada and work for BioWare, and I jumped at it. So
Sick.
that's where I am now, man.
Dude, so I know you were, prior to picking a ZBrush, you were primarily working as a 2D artist, right? Like just regular concept art.
Yep.
What made you to switch? Like, what was your reasoning behind like, oh shit, I better pick up ZBrush and do whatever I do?
Well, I kind of dabbled in it just because I saw like the potential of the program. It looked really fun.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was pretty much just hooked from there. I felt like a kid in a way. It feels like playing for me. But I don't know what drove me to go more towards the 3D. I guess like with 2D, your concepts can be interpreted like in a professional environment. They
Mhm.
can be interpreted in a number of ways. Like volume isn't always translated that well. And the benefit of using 3D is that there's like no room for interpretation. There's obviously room to improve it, but you can get the majority of your idea down without having to do like turnarounds and all that
Right.
kind of stuff. So I found it like really useful in like a production environment. Plus it was fun to like design something and be able to turn it around and pose it. You've got like once you've done it, you've got that asset forever, right?
Yeah.
So you can reuse it, you can repurpose it, you can do all sorts of stuff. So there's a lot of benefits to using it, I think.
Yeah, you can't really pick up a layer from the painting that you've done before and take it, rotate it 45 degrees or keep rotating around like, oh, I'm going to make a painting out of this now. It
I
doesn't really
guess
work that way.
yeah. I mean, I've seen Tom Scholes do that kind of stuff, and he just fucking kills it with that. Um, I don't. I haven't really used that technique that much. Um, but yeah, I mean, like for me, the fact that it works so well in like a game environment, you can prototype essentially like your designs in engine really quickly.
Yeah.
You go from concept to seeing what something's like in game, even if it's just like a static mesh or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's an amazing bit of software. It can be a little bit hacky at times. Like sometimes it's a little bit fragile. I hope tonight it's not fragile. But
You mean like when you start using ZBrush, everything just doesn't make any fucking sense, and then
oh yeah, well
when you click something wrong, it just crashes the shit out of your computer.
yeah. I mean
Yeah, I
that's
agree.
that still happens. I think I don't know if it's like the calculations just get too crazy and it just like goes no, not doing it today. But it can be a little unstable. But for the most part, it's just a solid tool. It's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's used as one of the primary tools for film and game development, whether it's a character or even environments. Some of the environment artists at Naughty Dog use it for textures, like they just create normal maps in ZBrush.
It's
And
incredible.
it's there is the versatility of the tool is obviously great. So when did you pick up 3D? Was it at when you already landed at BioWare, or it was prior to that?
I first tried it, I think when I pretty much left uni,
Mm-hmm.
and I had an interview at Ninja Theory, and they asked me to do a sculpt of like an old person's face as a test.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's kind of when I first tried it out, but I kind of left it. And then I picked it back up again like maybe 3 years ago and not looked back. So yeah, I guess 3 years using it seriously.
Cool. Yeah, I've tried to pick it up a while ago too. I did some sculpts, some hard surface like helmets and stuff like that. But I always had this problem with the thing you're talking about, the crashing. That
Yeah.
was so bad, dude. I was just like, ah, fuck. And also the problem was, I think that the fact that I don't know. There's something. There's some weird approach that I have, that instead of just evaluating a tool in a proper way, where you actually follow instructions and tutorials to learn the tools and learn its limitations and whatsoever, I always think of it like, shit, I'm gonna make the most epic stuff, and then I push it to the limits. It's just like fucking every 10 seconds, it just breaks down into pieces, and I'm
Yeah.
getting frustrated. I think that
I
was one
think
of the reasons I just decided to like, nah, fuck it. Um, but I'm looking at it again. It's just like, damn, like there's so much stuff you can do. I actually picked it up recently again, and started dabbling in it with Daz 3D figures.
Oh, sick.
doing some of just pushing it from Daz to like GoZ to ZBrush and just trying it, like see what I can do and what I can push, like which polygons I can push, what's the proper workflow. Because one of the frustrating things that I use Daz like a madman, you know, I use it for almost everything that I do, especially when it's character related. But one of the most annoying aspects of it is just like it's the figures that you can buy. Some of them are really good, but most of them look. I think Ash had have said it properly. When he's playing around Daz, he feels dirty, and I agree with him. I agree. There's so much weird stuff. There's so much weird stuff there, especially done by other users. It's just like, dude.
Yeah.
It's just like if someone watches you on a screen, like if someone would watch the screen, what the fuck you're doing with Daz and what you're pulling out there, especially like in the Daz store, they're like, dude, what the fuck, man? What are you looking at?
They're aware of that market.
That's
as
dirty.
Well,
yeah.
you know what I mean? Like they know who their users are.
Yeah, but apparently it's they use it for. There's a lot of applications that people are using it for. Even like I think there's this game, very popular game called Second Life. I haven't checked it myself, but it's like one of those social games where they use it to like create different avatars and shit. So I mean, there's obviously use for this. I was surprised when I came to work for film that nobody's using that. It's like this. It's the easiest software to use. It's the easiest to pull up like some cool stuff in it, and nobody was like, not many people were doing it.
Yeah.
And then, so some of them would be doing it, but like a lot of people were not familiar with it, and I guess it's because it's one of those softwares where it just feels dirty and kind of looks dirty, and like you're questioning like, should I even pick it up?
Yeah, I don't want people seeing me use this.
Yeah. Well, one interesting thing what you're doing is you're utilizing 3D in a way that, because normally when you think ZBrush, right, there's two things that come to your mind in the first place, at least when I look at it personally, is you either make a character art, especially when you're working in game. It's like, yeah, I'm a character artist. I'm doing sculpts for characters, and I do retopologies and make sure that everything is sort of game ready and that whole fucking workflow. It's amazing, but it's also like really time consuming.
Yeah.
Or you think creatures, like I guess that's like the two major uses that I see it out there.
Yeah.
What you're doing is kind of interesting because I think if you look couple of years back, saying that you're 3D concept artist for video games, that would be sort of like an alien thing to say, in my opinion, right? And these days, it's really not. It's just changing constantly, especially with how many tools you can interact together with ZBrush, and how many cool things you can combine with ZBrush and put out like really, really good results out of it. And this is exactly what you're doing. So my question here is like, what, I guess, because you were a concept artist, right? I guess you always felt a need to concept rather than produce. Is that a fair thing to say?
You mean like final assets, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think it's the part of the job that I enjoy. I don't think I'd enjoy the kind of unwrapping, the retopo, the low poly. And,
do you know anyone who enjoys UVs?
No, actually, I don't. But I mean, it's a tool. Like at the end of the day, so if it wasn't here, I'd be painting and drawing more.
Right.
But because this software does exist and it has some amazing tools, it lets me. I'm not like the most technical person. But like it's got such a good tool set that you can just pick up a handful of things and produce like good looking stuff. And like I say, it's fairly robust. You're right when you say, like, when you think of ZBrush originally, you think like creatures or kind of like mostly like organic stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Just because doing hard surface like sculpting, uh, the two don't like kind of logically go hand in hand, because like it's not, you're not pulling individual points like verts around, you can't be as accurate. But there is like a really good tool set within ZBrush to allow for like hard surface.
Yeah.
So I don't know when they added those in.
I think it was version 4. The 4R5 is when they introduced all the cool hard surface tools, and then I
Right.
think a few versions prior there was some of like the polish tool and like the flatten and all those sort of hard surface kind of tools. They're really sculpting tools and not really like a accurate hard surface modeling really,
Yeah.
but they deliver the results pretty nicely.
Yeah. And like this would be handed off to someone who was like a Maya expert or like a Max
Yeah.
expert, and then that'd be translated, you know, um, into like a proper mesh. Like I'm almost embarrassed when I hand stuff over. I'm like, yeah, this is dirty. Don't judge me.
They
But
get the file and they're like, oh, for fuck's
yeah,
sakes,
what the fuck were you thinking, man?
not this shit again.
Yeah.
So so what would you say about, because obviously you made it. You are working as a 3D artist, a 3D concept artist in games, right? You're basically doing exactly that. And I guess what I feel is there still the sort of the common approach in the industry is still sort of like, if you're a concept artist, that usually means your primary tool is Photoshop.
Yeah.
You're not really touching that much of a 3D. There is more and more use of 3D in the environment work, but
Yeah.
barely ever. You don't hear much about using 3D for like sculpting as a concept art. It's again, it's like the quickest association is the actual character art.
Yeah.
What do you feel the industry is at right now in terms of like using specifically what you are doing for the actual production work? So like being hireable, let's put it this way. So let's say I make a conscious decision. All right, I like ZBrush. I fucking love doing this shit. What are my chances? Sort of like
I
looking at
guess
this perspective.
it's the same as if it was just a 2D portfolio having 3D, I guess. I mean, and also who you're applying to, and what they're looking for in an artist. But personally, I think it's pretty much going to be the way the software moves, or the industry moves. Like it is a tool at the end of the day. So I'm thinking like I've seen some of the stuff that they're doing in VR. Like Google have some software, and there's another bit of software I forget. But it's basically like painting in 3D space, and I can see that being a logical step after ZBrush.
Yeah.
So it's like it would be some kind of crossover. It's not quite modeling, it's not quite painting, but I think having a good understanding of like form, which is something that sculpting I think helps. It kind of helps you kind of hone in on that kind of skill set. It kind of like hones your eye or whatever. So I think having a good understanding of form, especially for like the game industry or film, where your assets will be translated to 3D eventually, I think it's a given that that's going to be a benefit.
Yeah.
So personally, from what I've seen, there's not really a drawback. I think the only thing would be it takes a little longer on the front end to produce the artwork. You know, like it takes a bit more time to get like a full 3D sketch than
Yeah.
a sketch like in Photoshop. But what you get out of it, you actually save time.
Did you try out Tilt Brush yet?
I have not tried Tilt Brush, but that was one bit of software, and then I think it's Oculus Medium was the other one.
Mm.
I
And
haven't tried that yet.
that
I've tried the tilt brush. It is insane. When you are in the tilt brush, when you're in VR and you're putting those brush strokes, holy fuck, it feels different. Like
yeah?
I feel like a fucking noob, like an idiot. Like what the hell am I doing? And I'm pretty impressed because there's quite a few artists that are already using it and very well. And it's just like, obviously it's very crude right now. It's barely usable, to be honest. There is probably no application of it right now in terms of, actual production work.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be a couple of years until it really kicks in. But it's
Yeah.
coming. I totally believe it's coming. One of the reasons why I started this topic is, we do have this conversation over and over again. I think it's like, I think we should rename Art Cafe and call it Mache is trying to convince you to do 3D work, fucking bitches. And the reason is it's very simple, is because I personally have been in the industry for quite long. I don't know how many years you've been a couple of years now too, like 6, 7, 8 years, right?
10.
Oh, 10. Oh, there you go. So you've been in the industry for pretty much the same time I've been, and you've seen this unravel within a decade really quickly, right? The time we started, the industry was totally different. We actually discussed this with James Pake on one of the previous podcasts, and even Leon Artio from ArtStation. We've been talking about how industry was changing over those years, and there used to be the old generation and the new generation, the next gen gaming that kind of introduced like heavy 3D use and normal maps and all that jazz that basically blew the development teams out of proportions in terms of how big they became. All of that rolling into, I don't know, a depression in video games where almost every day you would read about companies getting devoured or filing for bankruptcy, to a point where now some of the games look so fucking amazing you're just questioning yourself, like, am I looking at the game or what is it, right?
Yeah.
And it's funny because like we're talking about ZBrush right now. 2004, 2005, there was no ZBrush, right? I think I'm correct.
Yeah.
When did it start? 2006? That was
I
when
should
it's,
have
or
my
5.
history, but I'm not sure. I think it was around that time.
Yeah. And it was a 2D, 2.5D fucking weird tool for like a relief sort of painting, almost like you're doing a normal map or displacement map out of a canvas. And that was really it. And within those couple of years, it's changed to the industry standard for film and games. That's, just a few years.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like interesting because I've noticed one thing. So the amount of changes in hardware and software that happen yearly right now is constantly accelerating every year.
Yeah.
Every year the change is more massive and more significant than it was last year. When you look back into 2005, 2006, 2007, you're talking about very crude 3D tools, very crude version of ZBrush. If you wanted to have really realistic rendering, you were looking at production level, VFX level hardware and software. If you wanted to use V-Ray, you would have to be a mathematician. Any of those softwares were like incredibly hard to use. Even 2-3 years ago, getting a decent render required effort. Let's just put it this way, right? Like you just still had to have the right machine, like really fast machine, like really like quite a lot going on there in order to produce something that looks good. Now you load up V-Ray, for instance. You load up ZBrush right now. You can do pretty much everything in it. Every fucking thing. You can make environments in ZBrush. You can. You couldn't a few years ago, but now you can. You can make poly modeling in ZBrush because they added it. There's just so many things you can do, and it's just becoming easier and easier to use. I wish stability was a little, on that end as well, improving.
Yeah.
A little better there. Not crashing so much. Just being, nicer. You being more aware of your, feelings. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, don't get me so frustrated every day with ZBrush, please, pretty please. However, it's just like it's such a robust tool right now. Much the same you can say about pretty much any other software. There is some changes on the level of Photoshop right now that I'm just like, I don't even know if there's anyone who needs to learn like compositing or, there's this new selection. It's called Make and Select. They've added this just very recently where it just makes like, keying, like the green screen keying. It's just like effortless, easy stuff. Taking like let's say you have a photo with trees, for instance, and the sky, right?
Yeah.
It used to be pretty difficult and required some technique to key out the tree to make it look decent, so it doesn't have like this weird white outline and whatsoever. So you can use it for matte painting, for instance. Right now with this new tool, it's fucking easy. It's just like few clicks and it works. It's insane, and it's the same. It's the same that I'm seeing with ZBrush. Again, 5-6 years ago, like what you're doing right now was not possible, or was way harder. And it's kind of like apparent that where it's all moving, you're basically, it's a correct way to say it, you're basically a 3D concept artist, and that was not a thing just a few years ago. This industry, for what you do, is just kicks in, like it just knocked the door out and like, fuck, we're just doing this now, bitches. And and it's successful. I see more and more artists doing sick ZBrush work, and that's not a production work. That's not your typical character art that you do for retopology and use for video games. That's like, no, I'm just sketching. I'm just creating sketches and concepts for games,
Yeah, or for fun, man. Like,
or just for fun, obviously. But
you can 3D print this stuff, like that's a whole other thing now. Like that wasn't even a thing when I started like making art, that's relatively new.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, again, like the change is massive, and you can totally see where it's going. And it's just, I'm impressed, honestly, the amount of software changes that are happening. One of the guys in the chat asked something interesting. I mean, we're gonna go to questions a little later, but that was something I caught with my eye. I'm not sure about what's the approach of Feng Zhu. I know he has his own school and he has his own approach to Fang Zhu. Dude, if I'm butchering everyone's name, and I don't give a fuck. Nah, but it's so good. It's so good. I guess it's applying to approach for design over use of software. And I want to hear your opinion about it, but I think we pretty much agree on that front that software is just a tool, right?
Yes. Totally. I mean, the most important thing I think for any artist is to get like a good grip of the fundamentals. Don't think that a bit of software is going to like make you an amazing artist. For me, it's like design, like good design. I'm not saying I'm like an amazing designer, but that's what I appreciate. And that's something that I try and look for. Like even in my sketching, I'm just trying to find a good idea that I can like take into 3D, and like the way the way you present those designs, like with the rendering you have now, like I use Keyshot a lot. It makes it so easy, so you can really sell your ideas. But yeah, I think the most important thing is having like a good understanding of art and design. You know, drawing. I think the 3D has helped my drawing to a degree, and vice versa. Like I have like a better understanding of form because I use so much 3D now. So that can translate to my 2D. But
It's
yeah, I
like a
mean,
skill that you're building, right? Over time, it's,
yeah, I guess it's just like the way your brain's working, right? It's the way you kind of think. I'm ruining this sculpt. It's horrible. But yeah, I mean, like it's just a tool. So same with Photoshop. Like you could be using pen and paper.
no.
It'd
There are still
it'd
some
be a lot
artists that
harder.
do.
Pardon?
There are still some artists that do.
Yeah.
The only problem is there's a bunch of artists that do use pen and paper because they feel that they don't need to learn anything new. And there's a bunch of them that use it and they are just killing with it because they are just fucking awesome and they know how to take advantage of that tool and promote it in a way that, you know, make them significant, if you put it that way. So they're not just like, oh, you're drawing a shit and you're not learning Photoshop. So well, I guess that's why you're not working. It's more like your drawings are awesome and you know how to promote it. So you're finding the ways to meet you know your means in you know in a very creative way in different industries, for instance, right?
Yeah.
I guess it's what's most interesting for me, and you know, I had my own approach to 3D. I went with the more traditional route where I kind of skipped sculpting. I guess I was too frustrated with trying to do too much and not really paying attention to foundation of it. And I kind of went with a way of like a regular hard surface modeling, eventually to like even applications of CAD and into actual workflow, you know?
Yeah.
But I can tell you that, for instance, as much as I can tell, as much as I can say, CAD is very useful for hard surface, and I can certainly use it for film work. I don't think it's still appreciated or any close to being useful in the realm of video games. Whereas this clearly, you know, when you're sculpting and having this approach that you're doing, it's clearly working and it's clearly being used in a way that, you know, you are the person in the industry. You are doing the actual production work for AAA titles, you know. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. It's a again, like going back to the idea, you know, the world is sort of moving away from the traditional ways of 2D. You had times where everyone would be just drawing in pencil because Photoshop was shitty, and then or it was not even existent, and then Craig Mullins came around and showed how you do the shit, how you make it happen, and everyone was like, what? And you make it with the mouse?
yeah, man, he did it with the mouse. It's next
fucking,
level.
dude. In one of the interviews, he was saying that even though like Wacom tablets came out, he was so used to mouse that he didn't pick up a tablet for like the longest time.
That's so hard.
And I was like, what in the actual fuck?
Yeah. And then he did, and just years of regret.
Yeah, for sure. So, dude, what do you think is next for you? I mean, you know, you're obviously, you know, having your own way of work, and you're pushing towards, you know, excellence in ZBrush. But I'm curious, like, what do you feel? Where do you feel this is going, and what do you think you'll be going with it?
Hard to say, man. I'd actually like to get into a bit of 3D printing, to be honest. Like actually having your designs become reality, like physically, that I find really appealing. I guess it's because when I was a kid, I used to love like buying model kits, like Gundams and all that kind of stuff. I guess there's still like the kid in me that wants to like see my stuff for real, and then like share that with other people as well, you know. But that's right now. That's kind of like just a pipe dream. I'm not like going to invest in a 3D printer quite yet.
Yeah, it's pretty expensive right now. Still.
Yeah, I feel like it's still really young tech. So I mean, the guys are doing some like crazy stuff, but for a consumer, like having like a desktop machine, I haven't really looked into it that much, but like I feel that it's not quite at the stage I want to kind of invest. But yeah, man, like I don't know, I'm really enjoying what I'm doing. I'm loving creating art. So as long as I'm kind of like still being fairly relevant, then I'm gonna carry on doing what I'm doing. As soon as I feel like I'm slipping, then I'm gonna have to catch up some, or like
The
I guess
catch-up game.
yeah, that's inevitable, man. Like you say, it's constantly changing.
Yeah.
So like one thing that I've seen like of late is like Substance Designer and Substance Painter, and the stuff.
Have you tried that yet?
I haven't, no. So that's kind of one thing that I want to like test out at some point. I think that will involve like a slightly heavier workflow, maybe, from like just basically like my workflow is like taking ZBrush sculpts right into Keyshot, and like you don't need to unwrap it. You press one button and it's in there and it works. So I think for me that's so easy. It's hard to like stray from that workflow. But the results you get from like from those bits of software, Substance Designer, Substance Painter, looks incredible. I think Painter more than Designer. I think Designer is like designing the materials from what I understand, and Painter is like the application of the materials to your model. So I think I'd probably be more into the Painter side. I'm not really like into shader graphs and stuff like that. So
yeah, I think Painter is more geared towards creating, actual layers for what then becomes a shader. So you basically paint out the textures, whether that would be diffuse or specular, normal maps and whatnot, and then I guess the designer part is where I haven't looked into it myself, so I'm obviously talking out of my ass right now, and everyone's listening and taking it seriously. Oh my god, they're talking some pure knowledge, and then you Google like, no, they're fucking selling me shit here. The heck, Art Cafe. What the fuck?
someone's gonna message in and go, "You're talking shit. Shut up."
And you're bombarded with messages like, "Dude, you bullshit, man."
Yeah, I'll get some hate tomorrow. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Oh yeah, I think the designer side is like more technical.
Yeah.
So it'd be like more of a technical artist's job, and then the rest would be like environment artists or character artists, like applying those materials. But it looks incredible.
Yeah. Have you ever tried looking into other rendering engines, not just Keyshot? I know the true appeal of Keyshot is, I actually had this discussion with Grant Warwick. We were talking rendering engines, and the true real appeal of Keyshot is just how fucking easy it is.
Yep.
It's just like, I don't need anything. I don't need to know anything about it. I just open it and it kind of works. So
yeah.
But I'm curious, like, is there any interest in you in terms of like exploring other rendering engines? Because I had like my fair share of exploring and going into V-Ray. There's two people that actually convinced me to look into V-Ray in the first place. The first one was Gavril Klimov. He's like, dude, V-Ray, you have to do V-Ray. V-Ray is the best. And the second person was Christopher Dess, from Naughty Dog. He's one of the 3D artists there. He's actually really fucking good with Substance Painter and Designer. And he was saying like, that's another thing you should look into. And I was like, no fucking way.
What software, man?
Yeah. And I can tell you, like, first I was thrown off from even looking into V-Ray because, you know, when I started learning it, it was still, I think it was version 2. Version 3 had some improvements where it basically kind of works out of the box. You just do some few quick setups and it works perfectly. The only daunting thing really is getting around knowing how shaders work, you know?
Yeah.
But one of the thing I can tell is, you know, the amount of the sickness of the results that come from knowing how shader graphs work. I think it's worth a while as an R&D project. I'm just curious, like, where's your head at this topic?
Well, they've just introduced that into Keyshot 6, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
So I've just started like messing around with the shader graphs, and I think it's kind of like a light version in comparison to a lot of other rendering engines.
It's like node based, right?
Yeah, it's a node based.
Yeah, it's the best way to work, honestly.
But yeah, I mean, like, I've seen some results from people, and it's just incredible. So it's something that I need to dig into. For me, I often would do a lot of stuff in post as well. So what I didn't get straight out of the engine from rendering, I'd like try and do in Photoshop after.
Yeah.
Often because it's a little quicker, you know. But yeah, definitely is like from where I started, I was using Maya like way back in the day, and Mental Ray was built in, and
oh no,
that was like that put me off rendering.
Dude, you're tainted with Mental Ray. Holy fuck.
Yeah, it was like it ruined me.
You should seriously load up the new V-Ray or even Octane. I think you will be surprised how seamlessly easy it is. Even you know, the Corona, or fucking even going further down the rabbit hole, Corona and F-Storm. Those are mostly 3ds Max softwares. Okay. I don't know how familiar you are with 3ds Max, but dude, how easy it is to work with those, and they are pretty much basically free.
Yeah.
Unless you consider $25 a month a major investment.
Yeah.
But they work so well, dude. For the price you're like, well, F-Storm is actually free because they're just testing it. They're just trying to make awesome render out of it, the GPU render out of it. So, you know, everyone is welcome to use it. It's actually free. You download it, install it. It's like 2 megs and fucking works. And it's mostly the ArcViz people that are working on it, you know, like doing those sick interior shots and you know, some furniture and shit like that. That's where it all starts. That's where the Corona is as well. I've been talking with one of the developers of Corona, and he actually remarked about that as well. Like, this is where the majority of people come from. It's kind of interesting and strange because, again, I'm talking out of my ass right now. People just, you know, take it into consideration. But to what I remember, and because I said it, and because it's on the internet, it must be true.
Yes.
When V-Ray was coming around, that's where you see it used the most, and eventually, you know, again, talking out of my ass, and eventually it just became like this industry standard. I think it's like a pattern. But yeah, it's just one thing that kind of works pretty well together is just, you know, once you understand the nodes and how to work with node graphs, it applies to pretty much everything. Procedural modeling, procedural, you know, shader creation, everything. I've learned it on, believe it or not, CryEngine, which is kind of weird.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, they had like node-based lighting and like scene building, so you could define a lot of things through the nodes. So that was kind of interesting, and I kind of learned it there. Quickly over to Nuke because I all of a sudden decided to be matte painter, even though I sucked at it. But at least I've learned Nuke. And
Isn't
here we
it,
are.
that's a VFX software?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nuke is like a compositing software. It's one of the industry standards, actually. Yeah.
Oh.
It was, dude, it was like weird to learn it, but I think because of the frustration I've put into it and no results whatsoever, the real results.
Okay.
What happened is actually it opened up some of the synapses in my monkey brain, and when I got seriously into V-Ray and other rendering engines and 3D, even just like making materials in Max and looking into that, I think it did help in the long run. Like years later, it's like it's a totally useful knowledge to have, because it just makes the whole workflow like childish easy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, you were like prepared for it
yeah.
time. Yeah.
Yeah, dude. All right. We are 45 minutes in. I think it's a good time to jump into questions. What you guys think?
Sure.
Yeah, let's fucking do this.
Yeah, the first one for you, Alex, says, are you using MD in your workflow? If so, could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. I use Marvelous Designer for, well, fairly lightly. Again, like I haven't built like the most insane kind of costumes with it, but for adding fabric, like jackets or basic cloth, even for like props and stuff, it's super easy. Like again, it's a bit of software where a little bit of knowledge can take you quite far.
Yeah, I agree.
And the results like are incredible. Like it's a sim, so you could do that stuff by hand, but it would probably take you years to like get to that level.
ZBrush.
Yeah, like there's people who can do it, and they're amazing artists, but that's not something that you can just pick up like overnight. Like you'd need to practice that a lot, and I haven't practiced sculpting a lot of fabric, so to get those results, that software is like pretty much unmatched as far as I know.
Yeah.
Again, I'm probably talking out my ass because whatever, but it's I personally think it's awesome. I think they have like a subscription model now, so it's pretty cheap to like test if you just wanted to like test it out.
Yeah, it's pretty cheap.
There's plenty of tutorials. There's lots of like free patterns and stuff, kind of like patterns for clothing. So you don't need to like basically study to be a seamstress. Like you can kind of like copy stuff and learn that way. So there's plenty of resource on the internet. But yeah, it's incredible. Again, another awesome bit of software. But it's not like I don't use that like daily. Like that's like kind of.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. I mean, I don't think there's anyone in even like character art department that is using it primarily, that is not using it primarily for clothing anymore. Like this is just became, I think from the time I joined Naughty Dog, that's actually how fast this went. From the time I joined Naughty Dog to the time I left Naughty Dog, the whole team went from primarily creating cloth in ZBrush to primarily creating cloth in Marvelous Designer.
Yeah,
that's how quickly it went.
Man,
you can't deny the results. Like,
dude, it's so fucking easy. Holy shit.
Yeah.
Going into the next question says, I just started using ZBrush. What do you basically advise when learning? Mainly self-taught or taking lessons from people?
I'd try and get as much knowledge from like ideally people who've used it already. If you're in a work environment, then learning off colleagues is really useful because they can kind of like troubleshoot when you have problems. But again, like the internet, there's so much resource available. Like it's hard not to like stumble across that stuff even. Like there's so many tutorials. And there's, on Facebook and whatnot, there's forums that are dedicated to this stuff. But I just say, like, kind of get in there, like start using the software, get used to the tools, like figure out your workflow, for like what you're trying to achieve, and just like learn by failing in a way. Like, you've got nothing to lose really. Like, if you've got the software, just like get stuck in. But like when I started, like when I first picked it up, like way back when I was like applying for Ninja Theory, there was like one tutorial, something stupid like that, and it was like how to put like crinkles on a face or something. And since then, it's like completely blown up. So yeah, man, like just get stuck in. I don't know if there's like a right and wrong way to approach it. But yeah, does that help?
Yeah.
Yeah, dude.
Cool. Next one says he's got two questions for both of you. It says everyone says that we should specialize in something like environments, characters, props, creatures, etc., etc. But when I see job postings of big AAA game studios, they almost every time describe that the concept artist will be responsible for character environments / props, creatures, etc. I'm very confused. What should I do? I like environments and would love to work. That's all.
Just work on what you love working on, and I would say that's the easiest thing we can say here, honestly. In majority of cases, and I'm pretty sure Alex will chip in here as well. You're getting hired for your portfolio, and if you have environments in your portfolio, then that's what you're going to be expected to do. That's what I believe. That's what I've seen happening. What do you think, Alex?
Yeah, it's a tough one. Again, like I think it's kind of down to who you're applying to as well.
Yeah.
Like some smaller studios will want like generalists. So you can do characters, you can do props, you can do, everything, right?
Yeah,
And then
it doesn't hurt being well-rounded, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's a good thing to have like a fairly broad skill set. But yeah, like if your thing is doing environments, man, just like try and nail it. Just try and nail the environments and get hired as an environment artist. But yeah, it's like totally depends to like who you're applying to, and like how big their concept department team is.
Yeah.
So if there's like two guys, then you're probably gonna have to do like everything.
Yeah, I agree. It heavily depends on where you work and who's your client and what is expected of you, and it's usually put out up front. Like, it's not like a surprise that 2 months in you're killing it with environments, and all of a sudden someone comes over like, dude, you gotta do those characters, or unless you're doing characters next month and you're fired. That's not gonna happen unless your boss is a dick. Then you don't want to work for that guy anyways.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree. That's another angle to look at it, and I think it's important to sort of put that distinction. Depends on who you're working with and whatnot. I mean, specializing in one thing. There's one thing that kind of works across the board, regardless what you're doing, whether you're doing art or trying to get your life intact. It doesn't really matter. It's focusing on too many things at once will make you actually scatter to a point where you cannot focus on something enough. And what happens in that situation is basically you're never finishing your work to a point that you're happy with it, or you're never pushing your work to a point that you're evolving as an artist. And that's really true if you're trying to do too many things. What I figured out and what I've noticed is usually just few aspects of your life are going to be the most important ones, and anything else will just become background noise. And if you try to fight it, you'll fail in most cases. I mean, obviously, unless you're a protege and you have your brain wired in a way that you can focus perfectly on everything and every single aspect of your life, I don't think it ever happens. But I'm just, again, because I'm not a scientist, and in this episode Everyone is talking out of their ass. But in my anecdotal monkey experience, specializing in one thing, it means that you're putting quite a lot of effort and time to get good at something. And the more time you spend, the more of that brain synapses you build, the better you become at it. The more failures you endure, and you just become better and better. And just ask yourself, and I think you can agree, Alex. Let's say you're painting something for quite a long time. You're just doing this one thing. You're just, let's say you're sculpting, and then all of a sudden you're picking up pencils. How do you feel about drawing in pencils? How good is that going to look like in the very beginning?
Oh, it's gonna suck so bad. If you haven't been doing it constantly, like you forget, the muscle memory, you know, it's all out of whack. It'll come back. It's one of those things that, you know, get back.
Like driving, right? You basically first week behind the wheel, if you haven't been driving for a while, feels like, holy fuck, I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
But eventually you're just like, oh yeah, totally, whatever.
But yeah, it's just training yourself again. But yeah. Sorry, what was the question?
No, it's just I think we got a good answer to this. So
Okay.
no worries, dude. No worries.
Next one says, "Hi, Maciej and Alex. I want to ask some words on design. A strong design with well-designed primary form, secondary, tertiary, and integrated them together to form a one strong design." It's kind of hard to read that one.
I'm trying to find that question in the chat myself.
Here.
I guess it's more of a statement than a question. I'm trying to figure. So basically, what it says is, I guess JC wants to hear our opinion. That's what I'm gathering here about what do we think about design forms, and what makes a strong design, especially when you're thinking about primary forms and how you add details to it and how you create secondary and more forms to it,
Yeah. I mean, I think it helps just to, like, this is very generalist and it will apply to pretty much any kind of medium, I guess, but is working from like broad strokes down to detail, and then within that, like, finding balance. So it could even be like your brush strokes in a painting, like how many like big broad brush strokes are you going to put in relation to like tight detail. And if you get that balance right, then it's like aesthetically pleasing. I think there's obviously like some kind of formula, like someone could probably figure out a formula to it, golden ratio. But I think it's something that you kind of like feel over time. You get like a feeling for your designs and like where stuff's missing, like, shapes that complement each other. There's like so many different elements. I think it's through like a lot of experience that you get that kind of like gut feeling about stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. And one thing that I could add here is, I said this before a couple of times, is when you are, a lot of artists that work there, unless you have proper, like, a real one-to-one time or education that happens to be with a designer that what he's talking about, and you start to understand the principles of design. In a lot of cases, it is the experience that will basically tell you or teach you what to do and how to design well. And understanding forms, understanding scale and balance, and all the rules that help you to design things, and what shapes, what kind of emotions come from shapes. That's something that will come over time, but you'll not necessarily understand it yourself. You just sort of like work intuitively with it. and then when you read it, it's like, oh yeah, it totally makes sense. And that's what I've noticed in my career. Like for the longest time, I wouldn't consider myself a designer. I was considering myself to be just an illustrator, because I could illustrate, but I couldn't design, and I never felt I could. Just only recently, I sort of feel that I have some kind of maybe stronger approach to certain aspects of what the design is, that I can create, by making creative choices, I can create something that is unique in a way, right? Not always, but at least at times. And there's one book that it was recommended by Ash actually, and it was kind of interesting because it's a very, very simple book. And I would say it's a starting point to understanding design and looking at it from the different angle. The book is called Picture This, How Pictures Work by Molly Bang. We're going to include the link to this book when the stream is over. I'm going to put it in the description of the YouTube video. But this book is very cool because it almost feels like it's written for children. It doesn't take more than 20 minutes to go through it, or maybe half an hour, depending on how fast you're reading. It's really short. It's mainly with pictures. It's like for a child. And it explains a lot of principles about how design works. And one of the things that was really interesting to me, it opened my eyes into how I think about design. The second one that I've been promoting a lot is a Visual Story by Bruce Bloch. And that's mostly related to cinematography. But I found it very useful. Especially, it's very hard book to read, by the way. It's not an easy task to understand this book, because it talks a lot about weird concepts, affinities and contrasts of forms, shapes, lines in relation to cinematography. So you kind of have to decipher it for yourself and translate it to the realm of illustration. And from there, it's just a vast realm of a lot of cool shit that you can learn. One thing for instance, I found really useful is looking into fashion, and fashion design, because there's some shapes and forms and ideas that are really freaking cool and are unorthodox, and you rarely ever see them in the realm of concept art, because what's the easiest thing to do when you do concept art is to look at other concept art. That's I guess that's the first thing that people grab and hold to. The only problem with this is just the repetition of same shapes and forms. When Vitaly releases his Kit Bash pieces and his projects, there is hundreds of Vitalys out there, because just like the design and form is sort of already figured out, it's much easier to be inspired a bit by it instead of just understanding what exactly was done there to make it fucking awesome in the first place, because that's much longer route, So that will be, I guess that's some of the few aspects that I think relate to what JC was saying.
I guess you said that is more related to illustration, how for film. I was asking more for object design.
All right. Yeah, I mean,
design stuff.
It really, all of it applies to, regardless whether it's illustration or not. The design principles apply to everything. There's so many of them, and it's really easy to get confused. Everyone is throwing the word design. It's the easiest way. It's the easiest thing to throw in. I think Ash was covering that topic in his last Twitch stream, right? If I remember correctly.
Yeah, I believe it was.
It's the easiest word to throw in because there's just some principles that are repeating themselves. It's really connected to what the foundation of art really is as well. But the true design comes from knowing how to use those terms that are really meaningless sometimes, and applying them to create something that is really really creative and really original. One thing I can tell is, again, like this book kind of the picture of this book opened my eyes in a lot of ways, because it seems like a stupid book. It's so easy. It has like triangles and fucking a wolf that is just built of triangles and some fucking squares, and like, what the fuck am I looking at? And you're really trying to understand it, but it just grasps the idea of shapes in a very fundamental way, and it makes you think. And I think the best thing you can do for yourself is grasp the idea of what the foundation is, and what creates great design is, I would say, it's understanding the foundation, things like the balance of shapes, the repetition of shapes, what shapes mean, what colors mean in terms of, how humans perceive shapes and colors, right? How different lines are affecting your feelings, and those things I'm mentioning right now are mentioned in the visual story book. And once you understand those things, it's a series of months or even years of failures and making mistakes and being a Xerox machine, copying everyone else and realizing that this is not getting me anywhere. And all of those things and experiences that are based off the foundation that create a creative mind in which you're using a foundation and using your experiences in a way that nobody else have been doing it before. And you're not basing your design choices, your shape choices, the way you combine color with shape, with line, with all of those aspects, right? Like if you think about how many aspects of design are out there in terms of like scale, shape, line, contrast, lack of contrast, and if you start thinking about how many combinations each of those can create, simple math, right? If you know how to you do simple math, you will quickly understand that the odds of creating something interesting out of it is just like there's millions of choices that you have. But you'll always lean towards something that is familiar because you've seen it before, and it's much easier for your brain to process. So out of the million choices, you're going to only use hundreds because you've already seen it and it's easy to do. But unless you explore the other 900,099, whatever amounts of choices that you have left, and fail with them and really fail miserably and make horrible design mistakes and make it look like shit, you will probably never understand the potential that you have, that you can move with that. And so that's one of the reasons I pretty much stopped looking at concept art, because it's just like I've noticed that when I look at concepts, it's influencing my work in a way that I'm not happy with, And I try to, and from now on, it's just like I always try to find inspirations elsewhere. There's always going to be a degree in which you're finding inspiration from places and you're applying it. It's almost like you feel dirty because you're stealing some of the ideas that you've seen before. But as long as you're experimenting with things that nobody else is experimenting with, or you're trying things and mixing it together with something else, and you're basically training your brain to look at aspects of it in a very different way than anyone else would, because you're now not in the bubble of I'm gonna go to ArtStation because I have to do sci-fi helmet. I'm gonna look at nature, look at fucking microscope, the electronical microscope, photos of patterns in nature that will define the shapes of what I want to do with my helmet. Like, how many people would have that thought? Not that many, Now, how am I going to combine it with different colors, What is just look at the color spectrum and how little we know of what the colors are, because our brains are fucking stupid that we only see 5% of what actual spectrum of color is. 5%, by the way. Knowledge taken out of my ass.
So it's 808. That's a lot of fucking awesome information. You said thank you too.
Yeah, I could go on. Obviously, I could go on. Let's jump into more, maybe a few more questions.
We have about 5 more questions, and then we'll call it.
Right. Yeah.
Sound good?
Sounds good.
This one says, it's for both of you, basically. It says, when do you ever change your workflow when you can't achieve basically a 3D sketch? Do you jump into like Photoshop instead? Or do you guys just mix both of them? Or how does that workflow?
I didn't quite understand that question.
So it's basically asking, like, when it comes to time constraints, do you jump into like Photoshop to finish it off? It seems like.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really quick way of getting something presentable. I mean, you could either just sketch something out in Photoshop, or take your rough sculpt and then just like touch it up. That's fine for concept art. Yeah, for character art, I'm not sure if that's
that'll probably never work.
Yeah.
No, you have to make it sick. No, I agree with you, dude. I think it's a constant balance. It's like a game of balancing what works and what doesn't, and where should I stop, and like what percentage of 3D is fine to what percentage of 2D is fine, and then you just find that balance, and you learn it over time too. So
cool. This one says, do you guys think that 3D will ever surpass 2D in terms of speed?
Pretty sure yes. In one way or another. What do you think, Alex?
Yeah, I mean, with the software that they're developing, they're making things more fluid, easier to use. So yeah, obviously, time is a big thing. They'll probably have like something one day you can plug into the back of your head and you can just think about a concept and it will just appear on screen. But that's going deep into the future. But yeah, definitely, man. Like I think there'll be a tool probably released pretty soon that would allow for like incredible 3D concepting like very quickly. But again, like I say, they're just tools. Like it's Photoshop's one thing, 2D's one thing, 3D's another. But it's like how you use those tools, right? For me, it's mostly presenting stuff in 2D to get like approvals, and then like obviously potentially like handing that stuff over to a modeler. But yeah, like I think 3D's like it's already like super quick. Like I actually find like sketching in 3D sometimes I can get results quicker than if I was trying to explore ideas in 2D, just because I'm not rendering form. I'm just looking at like volume. So I'm not trying to get like rendering this helmet like accurately. I'm just thinking about the shape. So in some respects, I think it can be quicker already.
Yeah, one thing you learn when you get into 3D, sculpting or modeling, like a regular modeling, is like how quickly you understand how much you suck at understanding shapes and forms, especially when they're 3-dimensional. It's like a whole another world, and sometimes creating something in 2D like in Photoshop, as much as it's cool to cut time and make it easy on yourself and create something really quick like a sketch. The problem with the sketch is it's 2-dimensional. It's you if you're not working in both worlds, where you understand 3D from a level where you actually work in 3D, and 2D, in the same way, something that looks like a nice 2D sketch will probably might never work in 3D when you translate it to actual, 3-dimensional figure. And that's something you learn really quick when you pick up 3D. That some of your 2D ideas that look fucking amazing just don't work. They're just like, oh shit, it looks like shit. The fuck? Like, it doesn't work that way. I'm gonna turn my camera 5 degrees in a different direction, it starts to look like poop.
Yeah. That can happen. I mean, that's happened to me. Like, I'll do a sketch in 2D and it looks okay, and I'll try and replicate it in 3D, and it does, like, as soon as you turn the model, you can see there's like problems because it doesn't
Yeah.
look good from certain angles. So yeah, another benefit of using 3D. Everyone use 3D. It's awesome.
Next question is Alex. Who has been the biggest comedic influence in your life?
Graham Kelly. That's him. He's trolling me, man. He's trolling me.
Is he?
Yeah, that question was transparent.
All right.
Graham, I'll see you tomorrow, man.
Next question says, how do you guys keep yourselves inspired every day?
Usually, like, at work, we're like constantly inspired by other artists, like who we work with, and often there's like incredible stuff to like check out. Obviously, it's exciting to see like projects come together. So I think we get hyped in that respect. But yeah, I mean, like, there's such an abundance of art and design on the internet. Even like emerging technologies and stuff. Like, you see some, I don't know, like crazy VR stuff like that Oculus Medium and what is it, the Tilt Brush, the other one?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like seeing stuff like that I find very exciting. But yeah, I mean, like, we kind of hype each other up and like just talk through our ideas as well. Like, when we have like tasks, individual tasks, we'll like discuss them with one another and we'll throw ideas about, and usually that gets us like hyped up.
And then we'll take the last question, which is it possible to do some portfolio reviews with Art Cafe or in another stream in the future?
Yeah, we're gonna do that. We're gonna get back to that. That's something I already promised on the Art Cafe group. It's a pin post right there. We're gonna do that. I'm still thinking. I think it's one of the really near future.
Yeah.
Mr. Concept Art near future. One of the near future streams. We're definitely gonna do that, and it's probably. There's two ways of doing it. One is harder, it takes time, and we're definitely gonna do that. It's just because it's fair. It's basically taking data of who is the most active in the group and using that to create a poll, and then we create a poll, and the group is voting for who is actually the most helpful, and really the most helpful people that really care for the group on the Facebook will get rewarded. On top of that, we're just gonna we're just gonna randomly scroll through the images and pick up few and just go from there. Like pick up few images from the group and all right, let's review this one and take a shit on it and but in a constructive way.
Yeah,
yeah, it's like a shit that has a proper form, And
yeah,
it's shaped in a way that matches the image.
a well-designed shit.
Well-designed shit.
Right.
Now we'll definitely do that, and that's something I want to add here too. Dude, do we have any current events, motherfucker?
Yeah, I found a couple of really cool, interesting ones.
Let's go.
China had lifted its 14-year ban on video game consoles this year.
They had a ban on consoles? What the hell?
This was for, I believe it was 20 years. They wouldn't allow certain, you'd have to get in, like, I guess it's called the gray market. There's the black market and the gray market, but they wouldn't allow consoles into their country.
What in the fuck? I guess they saw what happened to Warcraft movie, where it just absolutely flopped in the West, and in China was like, woo! It's just
I mean,
the dollar bills, yo.
Yeah, in terms of production, it's going to be huge. And this was recently announced, so that's really cool.
That's interesting.
Yeah, that's crazy,
especially
man.
for us, like Americans.
Yeah, dude, America. Fuck yeah, dude. Fucking free country. Can do whatever the fuck we want. and nobody will stop us.
So the next one, I don't know if you guys are interested. This is a video game. It's called No Man's Sky. Have you guys seen it?
Oh yeah, that looks awesome.
It is. It's amazing. And they had a new trailer out. I thought it was really, really cool. But it's releasing, I think it was next month. I have to check.
Dude, I haven't seen it.
You haven't seen it?
Yeah, I'm watching it right now. But yeah, let's keep going. I'm just like a retard here. I haven't
Well,
seen anything.
do you know anything about it?
Nope.
So basically, their planets are procedural generated planets. The creatures are all generated as well. You know, the environments and everything is just everything is procedural generated, and they have a really cool format on how it's done and stuff. You should really check it out because like even this is just like it can be inspiration for artists too. You know, like say I want to go check out like what kind of animal I could design or something. You know, and I
Yeah.
go and explore these I think it was like 80 million planets that you could potentially explore.
All right.
Crazy.
All right. Figure this. Imagine this. You have this kind of game, right? Like No Man's Sky. And now think of Pokemon Go, right? And VR. And I'm just throwing it out there, dudes. I
Wow.
think some smart programmer can now take the idea and build it and make billions of dollars and make me pissed off in a few years.
It's gonna.
Oh,
Well, I heard you're gonna. Or a really cool idea somebody brought up was Pokemon Go in Grand Theft Auto.
No, but look at it this way. So Pokemon Go, pretty much the only good thing about this game I feel is making people go outside. And
Agreed.
because I've seen people running into the traffic. Like I've seen it with my own eyes. Like just with the fucking face in the phone.
Oh my god.
Running in the middle of intersection
Yeah.
because they want to fucking catch a virtual shit. But no, but think of it this way. I don't know, VR or AR in a new concept art, Mr. Concept
Near
Art here.
future.
Near future, creating sort of Pokemon Go-ish game where instead of catching fucking Pokemons, you're actually doing what No Man's Sky is doing. You're creating virtual worlds that are basically built upon and on top of what you see in the reality. So
Yeah.
like it scans the
true.
environment or Google Maps or whatever, and you're looking at, downtown Santa Monica, and instead of
Well,
seeing those buildings, you're seeing a fucking Blade Runner,
On top of that, yeah, I
Yeah.
thought of that too. And like it's like you're exploring.
and it just
dungeons,
applies
you know,
applies
where-
like costumes
exactly.
to humans that are walking
Well,
around
HoloLens
you.
is almost there. HoloLens is the
Yeah,
leader there.
yeah.
That's the next biggest thing. But yeah, it's really exciting. The future. It's the
Yeah.
future.
Do you think we're gonna? Do you think we're gonna
gonna?
see it before
Huh?
we die? Do you think? I think we're gonna.
I definitely
Experience
think
that,
so.
yeah.
I think in probably I'd say 5 more years. We're
Hey,
gonna see-
one thing China is doing great is this. I'm pulling it on top of the screen. This is what China does great. You cannot deny the Evangelion fucking full-sized print in China. You just cannot deny it, guys. You just cannot. Good for you, China. Good for you.
Yeah. Now the
They
reason
got
they,
like a
they have,
Gundam in Japan, eh?
Yeah, but they build like Evangelion in China.
yeah.
Oh, shit, I missed that.
That is fucking awesome.
I had it briefly on the screen for
It's
people
really
to see.
cool.
Cool. What else?
That's pretty much it. Other than sad news, I guess, is his name is Dolly, but it's a sheep that was it was cloned. The first cloned sheep.
Mhm.
It had died, and it was like 6.5 years old. But that's crazy, right? Just a cloned sheep, being able to be one of the leaders in like cloning itself. It finally died at 6.5 years old. And it's like, that's just. I'm not too sure why it died, but it's just think, damn.
John, can I ask
It's
you a
alright. They
question?
can get another one.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question,
it's a
John?
clone, right?
Are you still vegan?
I am.
Dude,
I am.
you go outside, go to like Amazon, or no, just go to Africa, and there's shit dying all the time. It's getting eaten by wild animals.
I
They'll
know.
fuck everything up because that's what nature is. So
Yeah.
Just saying. Just saying.
But I want to know why they died.
I don't know.
Is 6 a good age for a sheep? I don't know, like sheep
Maybe
age.
it's
Yeah, I don't know either.
Maybe it's a sheep age and it just fucking died
think- I
because
think
it
it
was
lasts-
old.
I think sheep last forever.
I think that's science right there.
Yeah.
Oh,
Science.
dude, have you seen that in Florida? They saw this fucking, I don't know, it was like 20 feet crocodile walking through the
Yeah.
golf course.
Didn't they kill it?
I don't know. They should.
Yeah, I
It's a
saw that.
fucking dinosaur walking out there.
That's
One of
huge.
the scary things that it's just like so off topic right now. People are just like, dude, shut the fuck up, man. Let's go back to talking about art. This is the only good thing you're doing. No, I think there's like a real scare right now in Florida because they found more than few Nile crocodiles, which are the ones that eat fucking humans.
Oh shit.
So, and they already had some attacks there, and there have been some attacks, including the Disneyland that was a fatal on the child. So that's kind of
No way,
scary.
man.
Yeah, fuck crocodiles, dude.
Are they
Fuck them.
cloned? Are they cloned crocodiles?
I think what's
Otherwise
gonna
it's so
solve all the issues with everything is just everyone should get access to internet. So hear me out, Google. Get those Wi-Fi, balloons or whatever the fuck, or
Facebook is
Facebook.
doing it.
Yeah, all right. Facebook. Get those Wi-Fi balloons, and just bomb drop VR, and just put two things in it: porn and new movies, torrent movies. And you know what? There's hunting will be. People will forget about destroying nature. That was going to be the most environmentally friendly thing to do.
Shit.
I'm telling you,
just drop
people are just
porn.
going to be in VR and fuck the going outside thing.
Yeah, it'll be good for us, man. It'll save our planet.
It's so much
keep-
stupidness towards the end.
Well, that's all the news I got. I kind of just grabbed it last
Nah, it's
second
good.
too, 'cause
It's
I
good,
forgot
dude.
to. But all right.
All right.
Yeah. that'll
Yeah,
end it.
sorry for the rant. Let's wrap it up, guys. Few things that I wanted to mention maybe towards the end is thanks for participating in the vote that I made on Twitter for asking for crowdfunding and if it's a good idea to do it for the Art Cafe. Our long-term goals is to just basically grow and expand this platform. We want to just start with making it more often, eventually go to places where we could, why not having a studio that is soundproof with pro equipment, and then getting all the guests we're having now through Skype to sit with us and have them on the camera and then see how they do on the camera. Pressure. But that would be my dream, that would be if we can make that happen, that would be fucking awesome. So we'll see how it goes. Either way, dude, thanks for being here. Thanks for coming on the chat,
having me,
dude.
Oh yeah, thanks.
That was a good one. There's more streams coming in the future, near future. We have some guests lined up for a few of the episodes, and I'll go from there. All right, let's wrap it up.
All right. See ya.
See
care,
ya,
guys.
sweet bitches.
Bye.
Later.
Bye bye.